Simon Winlow, is one of the authors of The Death of the Left. I am one of the purchasers of the book. Indeed, I'm halfway through it because I have an interest in it. The left died for me quite some time ago. And if it had died for everyone at the same time, and we had started at the beginning again, well, I'd have been a happy man. But I'm not happy because so many people still cling to the illusion of what was the traditional left, or at least hope that what passes for the left nowadays can be reversed and returned to a more traditional perspective. I think if you read this book, you'll find that that is a pipe dream. Simon Winlow joins us now. Simon, I'm very grateful to you. Congratulations on the book. I hope that it sells well. It deserves to. My thesis is this, that what people think of and regularly cuss as left is in fact liberalism. In fact, I think the left, as we knew it, has wholesale gone over to liberalism as opposed to socialism, which was where it was located before. Give me your view on that and sketch, if you will, the thesis of the book.
Well, the first thing to say is that both me and my co-author Steve Hall have spent our adult lives invested in the institutions of the left. You know, when this is not a right-wing criticism of the left, it's rather a leftist criticism of the left. And you know what we've realised as we've aged is that the left is becoming increasingly irrelevant and distant from the lives of ordinary people. It doesn't propose to advance the material interests of the working class. It doesn't even propose to offer a degree of security to those most in need of help. The left is far more interested in moving closer towards the establishment, so the main political parties, the Labour Party or the Democrats over in the States, are establishment political parties that offer no alternative. It's just a continuation of what already exists. And the radicals in the left, of course, are separatists and divisionists. They're identitarians who disavow the things that we have in common, the forms of solidarity and common interests, which were always at the core of leftist politics. So our realization that the left is dead has prompted the core of the book is a historical look at how the left changed and the forces that dragged the left off course as it moved into the 20th century.
Well, like you, I was a part, some say a leading part, of the left as long ago as the 1970s, certainly by the 80s. Do you think it all died at the miners' defeat in 84, 85?
Well, certainly that was a crucial break for me. The defeat of the left and the rise of Kinnock and the gradual move of the Labour Party towards the centre ground of British politics indicated that they'd lost all connection to their core support in the working class. They no longer proposed to, offer any degree of material security to ordinary people. And I think that was a real historic tipping point. And from that point onwards, you can see a gap between the ordinary working class voter and the institutions of the left. The gap grows bigger by the year.
Did Jeremy Corbyn bring the left back from life support into a walking, slightly shambling, but walking being again? And if so, could that be repeated in your view?
I don't think so. I think I admire Corbyn. I think he is a man of principle, a good man who really wanted to do some good to improve the lot of ordinary people. But the key division is the Corbyn project was dominated by liberal middle-class activists. And as time wore on, Corbyn began to talk much less about, for instance, investing in infrastructure, about bringing industrialism back to the industrialised parts of England and Wales and Scotland, and instead talked about the concerns, the cultural concerns of the liberal left. And I think that meant that the Corbyn project was never likely to reattach the Labour Party to its core at the core of the working class.
Well, I agree with that entirely, but there are many who will balk at that. The best argument for your position and mine is the capitulation over Brexit, isn't it? The overwhelming majority of working class Labour supporters supported Brexit. The overwhelming majority of these middle class, including middle class leftists, opposed Brexit. Corbyn chose the latter when he should have chosen the former.
Precisely. I think Corbyn, in so many respects, is a conviction politician. It's a characteristic that many mainstream politicians try to copy. Corbyn really is a conviction politician, but on the crucial historic issue of Brexit, he abandoned his convictions because he was, for many years, a confirmed Eurosceptic. And of course, he capitulated to his base and all of those who'd rushed to support his project, and presented the EU as a kind of cosmopolitan dream world where people could move around at will, rather than presenting it as an anti-democratic, thoroughly neoliberalized group of states which are fundamentally committed to the free movement of capital.
And the free movement of labour to boost profits. I don't know if you heard the stat I gave out earlier. Poor Bulgaria. I don't mean to pick on her, but the average minimum wage, the minimum wage in Bulgaria is 289 euros per month. Why would the workers in Bulgaria not move to higher wage parts of the European Union and be prepared to work for much less than the workers that are already living in those countries are earning?
Well, precisely, George. I think it's really an indicative issue, because what you see in the left's refusal to address those realities is their flight from reality into an increasingly abstract dream world of ideals and principles. And they're not concerned with the material world in which people go out and get a wage together to look after their families and build a life. Increasingly, they're more concerned with other issues, and they turn away from reality. And this means that the gap between the working class and the organised left shows no signs of being broken down in the years to come.
Well, let's talk about who you mean by the organised left. When I came into more or less full-time political activity, the TUC had 14 million affiliated members. Today it has fewer than 6 million. My own union, the Transport and General Workers Union, as was, now Unite, had more than 2 million members. There were fighting, politically conscious leaders like Jack Jones, like Hugh Scanlon, like Ken Gill, and others. There was mass support for trade unionism and for labour, and for the kind of labour represented by Mr. Benn, the late Tony Benn. Nowadays, the TUC only gets up out of its seat to defend, the Rainbow Coalition and sexual and gender politics. You never hear of the TUC engaged on bread and butter issues being experienced by working class men and women.
Absolutely, I couldn't agree more. I think you've seen a very strange corruption of traditional British trade unionism. Throughout the neoliberal era, it watered down and it became more orientated towards cultural issues and divorced from bread and butter economic issues and looking after the material interests of the membership. And it is, in many trade unions now, we've seen a wave of strikes, but they're taking below inflation settlements. And instead, you see lots of union leaders proclaiming their affinity with, what you call the Rainbow Alliance, and really having very little to say about the material problems that are faced by the membership.
Now, this is not just a British thing, is it? It's not even just a British and American thing. It's not just the Anglosphere. If you look at the disappearance of PASOK in Greece, the virtually total collapse of the socialist organizations in Italy, if you look at what happened in France, where Mélenchon, the Tony Benn of France, came very close to getting into the final ballot in the last presidential election, but was scuppered by the fact that a tiny number, some 3.5%, still voted for the Labour Party equivalent, which used to rule France. François Mitterrand in early 1980s became a great figure as the socialist president of France. It's a long way down to 3.5% from the days of Mitterrand. This is happening everywhere in Europe too, isn't it?
Exactly, yes. And I think, lots of ordinary people have re-engaged with politics as a result of their declining life chances, the difficulties they've faced as, their incomes have fallen in the last 20 years in particular. But what you see is, you've seen the rise of the far right, or, the right in some European countries. But in most cases, even the far right parties in Italy and elsewhere, they're confirmed neoliberals. They won't change anything in terms of economic management. They're interested purely in cultural issues. And this is the net, the result of 30 years of absolute conventional neoliberal politics. Everybody agrees on the basics, that the market should decide, that the rich should be allowed to retain investment capital, to invest freely and retain as much of the profit as possible, and that they should determine how money is spent. And instead, politics has become obsessed with cultural issues. The big jousting, the major arguments in politics these days are about cultural issues. It's about trans issues or something like that. It's about EDI issues. These are important issues, but the left abandonment of the economic realm means that it just becomes increasingly divided, and it throws away the potential for unity across these different identity groups, which was always at the core of traditional leftist politics, a sense of common cause, and that has been lost now.
It's the difference between, as Mr. Benn used to put it, I heard him say it 1,000 times, there's nothing frightening about socialism, it's social-ism, socialism. And these lefts, as they would probably still describe themselves, really believe in individualism, don't they? They've lost the sense of the social, the collective, the class.
Precisely, yes. Individualism is at the core of leftist politics now. It has been for many years, in fact. But all the identitarian groups that we've seen proliferate in the last decade in particular, they're built around a kind of separation from groups which are broadly equivalent to them. So the difference between, black people and white people, or Muslims and Jews, or your sexual interests should be irrelevant in the political realm. Socialism looked past these divisions, and in particular with regard to working class politics, it was about identifying sameness, commonalities, the things that we had in common. They should be at the forefront of leftist politics, not the differences, not the individual interests. And of course, the increased obsession with individualism and difference is immediately captured by the corporate world. And as we've seen, corporate America in particular, taking advantage of the left's absorption into cultural politics by simply levering up representative groups into high-level management positions and seeing that they're progressive while doing absolutely nothing to raise the wages of those at the bottom of the pile.
Yeah, you're supposed to applaud that today's cruise missiles might well have been launched by a woman of colour, of a particular sexual orientation. It would be funny if it wasn't so tragic. Tell people how they get your book, please, Simon.
Oh, you can buy it from all major retailers, but I would prefer you to have a look at the Policy Press website, where you can download it or buy it directly.
Fabulous. Simon Winlow and Steve Hall, The Death of the Left, Why We Must Begin Again from the Beginning. Thanks, Simon, for that tour de force. Much obliged to you.